I want to take this opportunity first and foremost to give all honor, all glory, all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Harakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, prophets, and teachers of Great Millstone, who are our spiritual fathers that rule well, teach well. Peace and salutations to the sincere Akiam and Aquat, who follow this truth in all diligence and all sincerity. This is not a black Hebrew Israelite teaching. This is not a black Hebrew Israelite doctrine. Salvation is predominantly for the people you know today as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians who are Israelites by seed line, as well as the speckled bird heritage of Yahweh, who are also Israelites by seed line, but in appearance they look like the so-called other nations. I'm your brother Abaniah of the Camp Heralds of Yahawashi, coming to you with another hopefully edifying lesson. And Shalom, Yahawashi Yahawashi, Bashem Kakedash Barakatha, or Shalom, since you say Shalom, right? Now we're going into the lesson which prophecies about Yahawashi. Yesterday on the works with myself, Shalom Malak, Yahawashi Yahawashi, Bashem Kakedash Barakatha. Yesterday on the works, myself and the brother Kazak, we went into the prophecy about Yahawashi's birth, right? And it's to answer the naysayers who think that the Old Testament never herald the coming of Yahawashi, right? You see, what you need to understand, Yahawashi need to have had a traceable track record. When Yahawashi told the Pharisees, if ye had believed Moses, you would have believed me, for Moses wrote of me, right? Yahawashi said he come in the volume of the book. It is written of him. He is the main character. So you must have the track record for you to understand and for you to believe that Yahawashi is who he says he is. And he is capable of doing all that he said he would do, all that he promised. So there was an aspect of it that we didn't get chance to go into on the works because of time. So I would like to continue it now. Now we had originally dealt with Micah chapter 5, verses 2 to 4. And we went into the prophecy showing you, detail by detail, it was speaking about Yahawashi. Now, with Yahawashi's birth, it was also prophesied in the scriptures that there were going to be Israelites, young Israelites, babies to be exact, who was going to be put to the sword. Now, this is not a new thing in Israel, right? So let me go to example to show you, right? So we're going to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. I'll pick up reading from verse 15. Right? So give me a second here. Right. So we're going to go to Exodus chapter 1 from verse 15, right? It says, "And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Sephra, and the name of the other was Pua. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live." Now there was a reason why he was given that instruction. Let's go high up. Let's see the reason. It says in Exodus 1 from verses 8, it says, "And there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we." So he was afraid of the growing number of the children of Israel that was dwelling in the land of Goshen. Because remember, they had the blessing of the Lord to be fruitful, multiply, and to replenish the earth. Israel, according to prophecy, according to scripture, is the people who have been compared as the sand of the sea, the stars of heaven, and the dust of the earth. It said, come on, let us deal wisely with them. And this wisely wasn't talking about dealing with them in righteousness, making allies or friends of them. No, it was about subjugating them, captivity, ruling over them. It said, least they multiply and it come to pass. So what the Egyptians were hoping that with bondage, with slavery, it would dwindle the numbers. And they ensure to make sure that the conditions were going to be very bitter. Conditions that would otherwise make it difficult to continue to reproduce. Right? It said, least they multiply, and it come to pass that when they falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So this was the reason why he was given that instruction, because of the fear of the people, the Hebrews. It says, let's see, verse 17, but the midwives feared the Most High Yahweh and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing and have saved the men, children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwife come in unto them. So what they were using subtlety. They said to him, we didn't even have time to reach to deliver the children because our women is so strong. Most of the time when we get there, they had already delivered. Verse 20, therefore the Most High dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared the Most High, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. So there was a great fear. Now you have to remember, Moses was in the similitude of Yahawashi because Moses was the deliverer at that time. In the first Egypt, when we were delivered, it was known as the first Exodus. In these times, we are awaiting the deliverance from this spiritual Egypt, because Egypt is synonymous with the house of bondage. And according to the scriptures, we were sent in as captives into or among the other nations. Right? So Yahawashi now, he is our deliverer. So we are awaiting the second Exodus from this Egypt, from this captivity. Right? So it was no different when Yahawashi came on the earth that Herod passed a similar decree. It was no coincidence. Things have a way of repeating itself. Right? Let's see if I could. Let's see if I look at a precept, I think it's in Exodus 2, where a decree was passed and Moses' parents put him on the river in a basket, that with the hopes that it would save his life. I think that's in Exodus 2. But we don't have to go there right now. So let's go to Matthew chapter 2 and verses 16 to 18. Matthew chapter 2, verses 16 to 18. But before we read that, let's get a little context to show you that prophecy is not only believed by the children of Israel, but there are heathens who also believe the prophecy, not from a standpoint of having faith and trust in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi. It's not from a standpoint of they being recipients of the hope, which is the second coming of Yahawashi. No, they simply believe in the prophecies because we believed in it. And in order to keep us in bondage and captivity, they learned the prophecy so they could try and stop it. So this is Matthew chapter 2 from verses 1. Now, when Yahawashi was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, Herod was an Idumean. Idumean is the Greek way of saying an Edomite. Behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Because as we dealt on the street teaching, Micah chapter 5, verses 2 all the way to verses 4, proclaimed that the King of the Jews was going to be born in where? Bethlehem, Ephrathah, right? It said, for we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. So Herod was troubled because this person coming to take my throne. And the people of Jerusalem were troubled because at that time the Romans ruled, and Herod was put as the king in Judea and Jerusalem by the emperor of Rome. So they feared the wrath of the Caesar. Should this matter reach the heirs of Caesar, you know, things what the captivity was going to get even more bitter. It says, and when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where her Mashiach should be born. So he threatened them. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people. Verse 7, then Herod, when he had privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him. Now we know this was a trick. Herod had no desire to worship Hamashiach Yahawashi. And why would he? Yahawashi was never promised to come and save the Edomites or any of the other nations. He was promised to who? Israel. Verse 9, now when they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Now let's drop down a bit. Verses 16, it says, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem. Now this was a decree, just like the Pharaoh of Egypt back then gave the decree to slay all the males that were born to the Hebrew women, but save the daughters alive. And that was in literal Egypt back then, under the time of Moses. In that captivity that Yahawashi was born into, Herod, who was placed on the throne in Israel by the Romans, issued a decree to do what? To slay all the children, because he was in fear. Right? It goes on to say, and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, Salakia, slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So Herod paid attention after threatening the wise men to reveal the prophecy. He was able to understand that the child would have to be anywhere between 2 years and under. Right? So picture this. A man given an order to what? Slay children, to slay babies. Or they need to understand that Esau Edom don't have a problem shedding the blood of children. He don't have a problem doing that. Right? Let me see if I find this piece up here. Okay, just now. This what I just read, it ties into Revelations. I'm trying to find it. Just let me see, to devour the child. Okay. Right, so Revelation chapter 12. Right? Now, what we just read, which I ain't finished yet, Matthew chapter 2, Herod issuing the decree to slay what? All the children 2 years and under. Right? And this is according to prophecy. This is Revelations 12 and verses 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This is similitude which represents Israel, the nation of Israel. Israel, according to the scriptures, is likened unto what? A comely and delicate woman. Right? And this prophecy goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15, which says, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise his head, thou shalt bruise his heel. And a lot of people misinterpret Genesis 3:15 and thinks it's saying that actual women have seed. No, it's speaking about that nation. It was prophesied that that nation, Israel, was going to be at odds or at war with another nation, another people. Right? Verse 2. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. Now that travailing and pain to be delivered was talking about the various hard bondage that we were under. And the child was prophesied to come or to be born in a time of bondage, just as Moses was. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon the heads. Right? This is dealing with Esau, Edom, and the Roman Empire. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them down to the earth. Now, when you understand Revelations 12 and verse 4, this also ties into what Antiochus Epiphanes did. We know the Greeks, after the fall of Alexander, the 4 generals known as the Diaduchi took control. And there arose, as Daniel prophesied, the wicked root Antiochus surnamed Epiphanes, right? He, after his campaign against Ptolemy, where he took Egypt, he went to Jerusalem and he put the Jews to the sword and he subjugated them, right? So when it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them down to the earth, right? He slayed them. And the dragon stood before the woman. That dragon is what? The Roman Empire stood before the woman, who was the woman Israel, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. So Herod the Idumean was also that dragon, which we see in that he wanted to unalive Yahawashi. Verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto the Most High and to his throne. That child is Yahawashi. Now we're going back to the Matthew, chapter 2, verse 16 again. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem, and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet. Jeremy is Jeremiah, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard lamenting and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. Right? So he unalived them. Now pay attention. It was fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet Jeremy, and it's talking about Ramah. Why is Rachel name mentioned there? Because when we did it on the works, I had the brother read the precept where it show you where Rachel died and where she was buried. Rachel was the wife of Jacob. That was his favorite wife. Right? Now let's go to that. Let's first read Genesis. Give me a second. Salakia. We're going to Genesis 35. We're going to read verses 19 and 20, right? Genesis 35, verses 19 and 20. Now, all this I'm doing here is to show you that prophecy in regards to Yahawashi goes all the way back to Genesis, to the beginning, right? The brother put up a Yapa precept, Psalms 10 and verse 2. The wicked in his pride doth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. Yes, and you see what Herod was doing, right? It says, and Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath. Ephrath is Ephratha, which is Bethlehem. Bethlehem was actually named after a Judite. His name was actually Bethlehem, right? So this, you have to remember, we have the head of the tribe of Judah, which is Israel's or Jacob's son Judah. From Judah, Judah had sons, and each son had sons. So each son had their own house or their own household, and there were people born to these households. Bethlehem was one such Judite, right? Do you know that David was also from Bethlehem, from the line of Bethlehem? He was the Ephraite, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, just like his father Jesse, just like his father Obed, right? Just like Boaz was. Verse 20, and Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, and that is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day, right? So you see, Rachel died and was buried in the way Ephrath, which is what? Bethlehem. So Rachel's grave was in Bethlehem. Now remember what we read according to the prophet Jeremiah, Matthew chapter 2 and verses 18, 17 and 18. Then was fulfilled that which, I look to water for that, like the brother putting up the precept, right? Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, which is Jeremiah, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard lamenting and weeping and great mourning. Who was that voice? Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because they are not. So the blood that was spilt that day because of the decree of Herod is what caused Rachel to weep. Now, why does this sound familiar? It goes all the way back to Genesis again when Cain slew Abel. What did the Lord said? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. So Rachel was weeping for the blood of the children of Israel that was spilt that day by Herod. So let's get the prophecy now. We're going to Jeremiah chapter 31. Jeremiah chapter 31 and verses 15. Let's see. Right. This is the prophecy that